Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're deconstructing one of the most drastic government pivots in modern history, the New Deal. Before 1933, the federal government had almost zero direct involvement in the day-to-day economy of the average citizen. But by the end of the decade, it touched absolutely everything. We're going to look at exactly how Franklin D. Roosevelt completely reinvented the American system during its absolute darkest hour. Picture the scene for a second. It's March 1933, right before sunrise. The nation is, well, completely paralyzed. Factories are totally silent. Banks have literally locked their doors. The American people are tuned into their radios to hear their newly elected president make a really desperate promise to tackle the worst economic crisis in U.S. history through bold, persistent experimentation. And this wasn't just a catchy political slogan, right? It was a desperate, unprecedented battle plan. When we say millions of people were affected, it honestly barely captures the sheer scale of the devastation behind that promise. We are talking about 1 in 4 Americans completely out of work, a staggering 25% unemployment rate. Breadlines were stretching for blocks in major cities, while out in the country, families were literally abandoning generational farms. The system hadn't just dipped, it had broken down entirely, and national hope was rapidly disappearing. So, here is our roadmap for this explainer. 1. America at its breaking point. 2. The first 100 days. 3. Putting America back to work. 4. Reforming the financial system. 5. Critics and court battles. And finally, 6. The New Deal legacy.
Section 1. America at its breaking point.
The Great Depression wasn't just one localized problem. It was a terrifying avalanche of interconnected failures. First, you had the initial stock market crash in 1929, which triggered a total banking collapse. That led straight into mass unemployment. Meanwhile, out in the heartland, you had catastrophic farm failures made so much worse by the Dust Bowl. There were dust storms so massive they actually darkened the skies over Washington, D.C. Throw in crushing deflation, and what you get is a complete and total loss of public confidence. The government had to act, and they had to act fast.
Section 2. The first 100 days. Right out of the gate in March 1933, the administration launched the Emergency Banking Act and declared a nationwide bank holiday to just physically stop the bleeding in the financial sector. But Roosevelt paired these sweeping economic acts with his famous fireside chats. Using the relatively new medium of radio to speak directly into people's living rooms, he explained complex banking holidays in plain English. He fundamentally understood that restoring psychological confidence was just as vital as restoring the actual economy. And it worked. By mid-1933, massive relief programs like the Civilian Conservation Corps and the Federal Emergency Relief Administration were already launching.
Section 3. Putting America back to work. Now, through agencies like the Public Works Administration and the Works Progress Administration, the federal government didn't just hand out relief checks, it literally rebuilt the physical landscape of the country. They created jobs for millions by constructing vital infrastructure, bridges, dams, schools, roads, and national parks. From engineering marvels like the Hoover Dam to, funding local artists to paint murals inside your neighborhood post office, the government was basically trading a paycheck for permanent civic improvements. The New Deal is pretty infamous for its alphabet soup of acronyms, which, let's be real, can be pretty dizzying. But if we organize these massive interventions by their primary function, the strategy becomes incredibly clear. The Tennessee Valley Authority, or TVA, wasn't just about building a single dam. It was about modernizing and controlling floods for an entire impoverished region. Rural electrification literally brought light and power to forgotten off-the-grid corners of the country, all while the WPA and PWA functioned as the ultimate engines for mass job creation. Section 4. Reforming the financial system. Laws like the Glass-Steagall Act and the creation of the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, or FDIC, permanently changed the rules of the game. By federally insuring bank deposits, the government essentially put a federal padlock on your personal piggy bank. Think about it. Even if the bank went under, the government guaranteed your money was safe. That single change was meant to ensure the catastrophic bank runs of 1933 would become a thing of the past. It was absolutely monumental for restoring public trust. Alongside that banking reform, the Securities and Exchange Commission, or SEC, was established. Its sole purpose was to act as a strict referee and police the stock market. You see, the 1920s stock market had operated a bit like the Wild West, fueled by rampant margin lending and insider manipulation. The SEC fundamentally changed the rules of American finance to prevent exactly the kind of reckless, unregulated speculation that caused the 1929 crash in the first place. And this entire overhaul culminated in what is perhaps the most sweeping change of all: the Social Security Act of 1935. Now, this wasn't just some temporary economic tweak. It permanently redefined the federal government's responsibility for the social welfare of its citizens. By introducing retirement pensions, unemployment insurance, and targeted aid, it created a structural safety net that simply did not exist in America before at this exact moment. Section 5. Critics and Court Battles. As you might expect, the nation was deeply divided on all of this. Supporters heralded the New Deal as the literal savior of capitalism, arguing it dramatically reduced human suffering and modernized a painfully outdated government structure. Critics, however, sounded the alarm on what they saw as a dangerous, unconstitutional power grab. They fiercely argued that it expanded federal power way beyond its constitutional limits, actively paralyzed private business investment with red tape, and, critically, failed to actually cure the core issue of mass unemployment. Building on that last criticism, historians and economists still debate the New Deal's ultimate economic impact today. While the relief programs provided undeniable, massive support and saved lives, the economy experienced a sharp recession again in 1937. So a lot of experts actually point to the massive, unprecedented industrial mobilization for World War II, not the New Deal itself, as the true catalyst for finally ending the mass unemployment of the Great Depression.
This ideological divide went all the way to the highest court in the land. When the Supreme Court began striking down key New Deal programs as unconstitutional, Roosevelt attempted a highly controversial workaround. He proposed a plan to add more favorable judges to the bench, widely known as court packing. While this sparked fierce congressional hearings, explosive political cartoons, and a constitutional debate about the separation of powers that rattled the very foundations of Washington. In fact, it was so controversial that even members of FDR's own Democratic Party fiercely turned against him.
Section 6. The New Deal Legacy. As the dust finally settled on the 1930s, these policies transcended their era to directly impact our modern lives today. Whether it's the FDIC protecting your savings account right now, the massive dams and highways you drive on, or the modern expectation of massive federal disaster relief after a hurricane, the New Deal permanently transformed the relationship between Americans and their government. It set a massive precedent for exactly how a government is expected to intervene when a crisis hits.
Which brings us to the end of our explainer. Whether you view the New Deal as a necessary, heroic rescue of the American system, or a dangerous overreach of federal power, its legacy forces us to confront this enduring, provocative question: how much responsibility should governments have during economic emergencies? It's a debate that started in 1933, and as we look at the world today, it's a debate we are definitely still having right now. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.